Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, as the vaccination situation in the country remains critical with very few vaccines available, as a result of which every single attempt that we make to try and fight COVID is perhaps just not good enough without vaccination. What we are looking at today are the various plans by state governments to try and import the vaccines directly into India. Now, many of these governments say that it's the government, it's the centre which should actually be doing this, but that's not happened so far. And the big concern is this: are there enough vaccines available in the international market in the first place for India to import right now? Or do we have essentially no choice but to help local manufacturers ramp up capacity even more? There are a few promising Indian vaccine manufacturers. Should there be at-risk investment by the government on these, with the promise that we buy up everything that they produce, because we are frankly at this stage not going to be able to import enough. Now, why is this all important? We'll tell you in a moment, but we also have later on this program a very special guest. We've got the country head of Amazon India, Amit Agarwal, with us. Now, his presence in this program is interesting because while we talk about COVID and the fight against COVID, and all of the aid that's come into this country, that's largely been aid which has come in from various nations. But in fact, Amazon has done an incredible job in bringing in a lot of very specific aid meant to help us fight COVID, including BiPAP machines and a lot of breathing devices which could in fact help many in this country. But let's go and start our first discussion first. And the reason we are actually doing that is because we need vaccines. Now, we've been saying this day in and day out, and therefore, why are state governments in the situation they are in today? Now, consider this. Let's bring you a graphic of early vaccine purchases done by various countries in the world. See what several countries had done last year, and let's take a look at what India did last year as well. So here you have it. In May 2020, last year May, more than a year back, the United Kingdom had taken an at-risk decision to buy 90 million doses of AstraZeneca, in July 30 million doses of Pfizer, and on the 14th of August 30 million doses of Janssen. So 150 million doses they had ordered by August last year. These drugs had not even been cleared for use then, but they took a chance. The United States had pre-ordered 400 million doses of the vaccines you see on your screen by the month of August. The European Union had pre-ordered 800 million doses by November last year. What did India do with a population as large as ours? In January 2021 is when we ordered 11 million doses and 5.5 million doses from Bharat Biotech, right? That's all we did. Now we've ramped this up, but this is the timeline of early COVID-19 procurement deals. And this becomes important now because despite the government having banned exports, the fact of the matter is because we never made the early stage orders, we simply don't have enough drugs, vaccines available right now, which is why state governments are now going to the world and saying, please give us vaccines, we'll buy them directly from you. This from a country which is known as the pharma capital, in a sense, the vaccine capital of the world in terms of manufacturing. Joining us now, Balbir Singh Sidhu, the Health Minister of Punjab, Raghav Chadha, the spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, and Malini Aisola, the co-convener of the All India Drug Action Network. Mr. Sidhu, let me come to you first. The Punjab government had actually spoken to Moderna, among other companies, right? And they said that they just won't deal with you. Is that what happened?
ऐसे है कि हमारी सरकार ने तो जब हमारे पास बहुत शॉर्टेज होगी तो हमने एक नया तरीका निकाला कि शायद डायरेक्ट हम इंपोर्ट करके सब लोगों को हम ये वैक्सीन लगा पाएंगे, लेकिन हुआ इसके उल्ट कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने तो हमारा साथ नहीं दिया, लेकिन उन्होंने रिफ्यूज करके हमारा जो काम रुक गया। लेकिन मैं ये कर जाता हूँ, डे वन से हमारे सीएम साहब भी ये रिक्वेस्ट करते आ रहे हैं, हम भी करते आ रहे हैं कि ये जो सारा काम है जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को करना चाहिए, नेशन टू नेशन की डील होनी है वो करे, और वो जो सप्लाई है वो एलोकेट आगे जो स्टेट वाइज वो खुद करे। और दूसरी बात ये है कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने बिहार इलेक्शन में, बंगाल इलेक्शन में बकायदा स्पष्ट बोला था कि हम टोटली फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट सबको ये वैक्सीन लेके देंगे और किसी भी कीमत पे। पर आज तो हम खुद पे करने के लिए तैयार हैं, लेकिन हमारे को
बलबीर जी ये बताइए, जब आप लोगों ने इंटरनेशनल कंपनीज के साथ बातचीत की, जब आप लोगों ने नेगोशिएशंस खोलने या ग्लोबल टेंडर देने की कोशिश की, तो ये फर्म्स मॉडर्ना या फाइजर ने आपको क्या कहा? हमें बताया गया कि मॉडर्ना ने कहा कि कोई स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के साथ वो बातचीत नहीं करना चाह रहे।
हाँ, दोनों ने हमको रिफ्यूज कर दिया कि हम आपके साथ बातचीत नहीं करेंगे। लेकिन इस समय सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का जो रूल प्ले करना पड़ता था कि वो खुद इसमें इंटरवीन करते और उनके साथ बात करते और स्टेट को वैक्सीन लेकर वो सप्लाई करते। लेकिन बल्कि इनका काम तो ये था कि सेंटर खुद ही ये जो आज आपने जो मेरे को पहले यूएस का, यूके का, यूरोप का आपने सारा दिखाया डाटा कि उन्होंने लास्ट ईयर ही उन्होंने इतने बड़े बल्क में उन्होंने परचेज कर ली थी। लेकिन हम 1 जनवरी को ये काम कर रहे हैं जो 1 साल पहले करना चाहिए था। लेकिन आज भी जो स्टेट खुद करना चाहती हैं तो उसके ऊपर भी उन लोगों ने हमको रिफ्यूज कर दिया। लेकिन इस समय सेंटर का जो जिम्मेवारी बनती है कि वो डायरेक्ट इंटरव्यू है।
I get the point you're making. I want to go across to Raghav Chadda as well. Raghav, it's a bizarre situation because I know that the Delhi government has tried with several international companies. You've not succeeded, and then you went to Sputnik, and then you tried to procure doses from Sputnik, and then you were unable to, for whatever the reason, at least not immediately. But the Maharashtra government, in fact, the Mumbai municipality, the BMC, was approached by 3 representatives. One of them, an official agent of Sputnik based in London, who said that, look, we are involved and we are ready to do this, right? And timelines were discussed, prices were discussed. Obviously, the tender must go on. But isn't that a problem? Shouldn't the government be dealing with this, the center, not states?
So first of all, as far as this BMC global tender business is concerned, to the best of my knowledge, understanding, and some research that I did prior to coming on this show, tells me that the companies that have applied or allegedly applied in the BMC tender are not official Sputnik dealerships or vendors. They are middlemen. And as far as Sputnik is concerned, Dr. Reddy's in India has the exclusive right to procure, manufacture and sell Sputnik in India, and there cannot be any other outfit, whether a state government or the central government. That's one. So I think in the coming days you will see some chatter around that. As far as your larger question regarding the role of central government is concerned, you are right. I agree that the vaccination policy of the government of India is a joke, simply because when the world, as you showed, was placing pre-orders to procure hundreds and hundreds of millions of precious vaccine doses, even when the trials were on, they hedged their financial risks. They took a calculated risk in order to procure in good numbers for their citizens. India, on the other hand, despite being a global manufacturer, was hell-bent on exporting vaccines, and we ended up exporting 6.6 crore vaccines to 84 countries. That's point number one. Point number two, once these exports were made, state governments were then compelled to issue global tenders to procure these vaccines from overseas. Now, there are few problems as far as these global tenders are concerned. Number one, none of these vaccines, Vishnu, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson, none of these have been approved by the Drug Controller General of India or have received regulatory compliances in India. Now, when US gave approvals to Pfizer, Moderna, etc. back in December 2020, UK recognized them back in December. More than 80 countries have recognized Pfizer. More than 68 countries have recognized Sputnik. 46 countries have recognized Moderna, and 41 countries have declared Johnson & Johnson as a drug in their country.
No,
India,
but
on the other
just
hand,
a moment,
has not even granted approval.
These drugs are allowed. These drugs are allowed now to be imported in India as long as there is a simultaneous trial that takes place. That's not what the case was earlier, but it is now. The question is whether these drugs are at all available.
End of May. I am talking of December last year, when these dozens of countries gave approvals to all these manufacturers to come and start administering, inoculating their own citizens. That's problem number one. Problem number two is that when we as a government also interacted with Moderna and Pfizer, both of them said that as a matter of policy, we deal and we sell to only federal governments, that is the central government of a particular country, and not state governments. That is their policy.
Okay.
That is how they operate. Why were the states compelled to issue global tenders? Then
Okay, Raghav, just one moment. One moment. I want to bring in Malini Aisola. I take your point.
Rejected?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. It's terrible because you aren't even able to do 18 to 44 vaccinations in the way that you want to do it right now. Malini, the bottom line is this: various state governments are now going abroad, trying to approach various manufacturers. Do the vaccines exist at all, or are these essentially talks for the sake of talking?
So I think, Vishnu, it's fairly clear that the centre's policy at the moment is completely unworkable and actually leading to greater disparities in vaccine access. It's quite a disaster in terms of the way that the vaccine supplies have been bifurcated between the central government procurement and what the states and the private sector is supposed to procure. In terms of the foreign vaccines, I think it's also clear. I have a slightly different take from Mr. Raghav Chadha in terms of what would have been available even last year, because some of these companies like Pfizer and Moderna have never really shown much of an inclination to bring their vaccines to India. Even now, when the regulatory requirements have been eased significantly, there is still, Moderna refusing to come to India and Pfizer demanding indemnity. So this was an early demand even last year. And of course, now there's also a question about whether they have any doses to give to India. Johnson & Johnson is another vaccine that has a foreign regulatory approval and could very easily, within matter of, maybe 1 to 3 days, receive regulatory approval in India. But again, it has not shown any interest in applying for that regulatory approval. So what I would say is that the solution is really going to come from our strength, which is local production. And that is the only sustainable solution going forward. This is also the solution to affordable access. In the next few months, we're going to see more vaccines coming online, including those that have been developed through foreign collaborations and that are being made in India through our firms. Utilization of our vaccine manufacturing capabilities is really what is going to give us the best chance. We do have a promising pipeline, and I think that
Raghav,
is really what we have to bank on.
Before I go back to Mr. Sidhu.
Look,
1 second, Malini. Raghav had a point to make. Yeah, go ahead, Raghav.
I do agree that while countries across the globe have pre-ordered the vaccines that are being produced by Pfizer, Moderna, etc., we are also unsure of what are the stocks actually available with them for India as a country or different state governments across the country when they approach the international market. So therefore, while we must lay our thrust on domestic production, the question also is that have we done enough to ramp up production within India? The question is, the government of India filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court saying we are in principle against invoking compulsory licensing and waiving patent. Bharat Biotech is producing a vaccine in a joint venture with ICMR. The government of India is an active partner in that production. But the government of India has filed an affidavit saying we don't wish to share the formula of that vaccine because we're in principle against invoking compulsory licensing. Number two, when the world was giving financial assistance to foreign manufacturers of vaccines, Indian government, on the other hand, did not even financially incentivize or assist and not even regulatorily assisted these manufacturers. And therefore, the financial assistance was given to Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech pretty late in the day. I think, if my memory serves me right, it's in the month of April, towards the fag end of April, that some financial assistance was given to Serum and Bharat Biotech.
Financial assistance towards orders. That was financial assistance towards orders. That was just a prepayment for orders and nothing more than
which
that.
Is not even assisting.
But I want to go back to Mr. Balbir Sidhu. Let me go back 1 second, Raghav. Let me go back to Mr. Balbir Sidhu. Mr. Sidhu, in a situation like this, does India have any option but to keep encouraging Bharat Biotech, the Serum Institute, and a handful of other Indian companies which are trying to make vaccines? Because imports are never going to happen in the amount that we require it.
ऐसे पहली बात तो हमारी सरकार की सबसे बड़ा जो फॉल्ट, जैसे राघव जी बोल रहे हैं कि भी एक साल से उनको पता था कि एक सेकंड पीक आने वाली है, जो हमारी प्रोडक्शन है उसको हमने क्यों नहीं बढ़ाया? जो हमारे इम्पोर्ट की बात आज क्यों बात चली, क्योंकि हमारे पास कोई साधन नहीं, हमारे पास जो प्रोडक्शन है वो 11.11 मिलियन की है और 130 करोड़ की हमारी पॉपुलेशन है हिंदुस्तान की। तो अब कैसे लोग सर्वाइव करेंगे? दूसरी बात यह है कि अब सब स्टेटों ने अपना जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वो खड़ा किया हुआ है कि हमने 3500 सेंटर बना रखे हैं, लेकिन वो टोटली ड्राई हो 2 दिन में ड्राई हो जाते हैं। तो क्या करेंगे? लेकिन जिस सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की बहुत बड़ी, मैं कहता हूँ गुस्ताखी समझ लो, जहां नलायकी समझ लो, कि उन्होंने 1 साल में कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं खड़ा किया जिससे हमारे देश को वो फीड कर पाए। और आज हमारा हिंदुस्तान इतना बड़ा कंट्री होने के बावजूद भी एक वैक्सीन के लिए हम जैसे भीख मांगने वाली बात हुई पड़ी है हमारे पास। और पैसा भी हमारे स्टेट देने को तैयार है, लेकिन वैक्सीन उनके पास है नहीं। और कोई भी मेडिसिन आपने लेनी है वो बाहर से लेनी है, वो भी हमारे पास नहीं है। अब ब्लैक फंगस का पूरा हमला हो चुका है और हमारे पंजाब में 16 डेथ हो चुकी है, उसके लिए मेडिसिन नहीं हमारे पास नहीं है। लेकिन अब किसी भी प्लेटफॉर्म पे तो सरकार ये कहे कि हमको हमारे पास पूरा सफिशिएंट स्टॉक है, कोई भी स्टॉक हमारे पास सफिशिएंट नहीं है। हर चीज अपने हाथ में ले रखी है, लेकर
Okay, Sidhu Saab, one moment. I want to give Malini the last word over here. Sidhu Saab, just one last question I have to ask Malini. We are running short on time. Malini, you know, there are a few companies we don't talk about very much because they don't advertise themselves. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. There's Zydus Cadila, and then there is Biological E, who are coming out with some very interesting vaccination solutions. Should there not be an at-risk involvement by the government of India saying, we will buy up whatever you buy, and we are willing to put in money right now to help you speed up the process and get your manufacturing sorted out? We missed the boat on warp speed 1 year back, but shouldn't we have something similar now?
So I don't think that it's that much of an issue in terms of financial risk facing these companies. They have what you can consider a captive market. All the vaccine that they produce is certainly going to be used. At the moment, we have some sort of an informal, indefinite export ban, right? Through the vaccine policy, it's indefinitely stalled exports. So I think, yes, of course, the government is going to be looking towards these 2 vaccines in addition to others that are expected to come on board online next. If I can refer to what Dr. Paul's presentation was for some days back. Of course, we don't believe the numbers in the presentation in terms of how much that the production capabilities would be, but certainly the government is certainly looking towards these vaccine candidates and will use them as soon as they are made available. I think we also have to understand that currently the problems of supplies have also been compounded by the current policy, and there is really no explanation for what the government is doing in terms of not following what it was doing for centralized bulk procurement, which is really the most efficient way to utilize our scarce resources, optimize those resources, and also keep the costs low.
Right. Yes. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. At the end of the day, there are no vaccines in numbers that we need right now. What's the way forward? If we can't buy from outside, can we at least ramp up production even more over here in India? Because many say that that target of 2 billion doses available by the end of December, which was alluded to by the government a few weeks back, that remains quite unrealistic. We're going to move on now to another big focus this evening. Now, over the last several weeks, we've seen a lot of work done by several countries in bringing in a lot of assistance to India. At a time when India was literally gasping for breath, you had countries coming in with oxygen generators, oxygen generating plants, and a lot of other very, very important kit. But apart from that, in the role of the NGO, there have also been companies like Amazon which have done incredible work, and we are very privileged to have Amit Agarwal with us. He's the country head of Amazon. Thanks very much, Amit, for being with us this evening. Now, ventilators, BiPAP machines, millions of dollars of kit that you actually brought in. Tell us a little bit about that, and where did it go?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I hope everyone watching is safe and well. Truly extremely challenging times for all of us. And, the way we kind of approached this was clearly this is something that requires prioritization on urgent footing. And we essentially put our focus on 3 main areas. One is the safety and well-being of employees and of our employees. of our community and then of our customers and selling partners. The piece that we were most focused on was how do we use our global resources to create a meaningful impact right at the front line. Now, what happened was ACT Grants and the Pune platform for COVID response reached out to us in April to airlift 8,000 oxygen concentrators and 500 BiPAP machines from Singapore. And that kind of gave us the idea that our global logistics network and capabilities and technology could play an important role while everybody in the industry and the government is huddling to figure out how they can support. So we kind of activated our resources, and the first consignment was already in India by April 25th, while with the remaining soon after. We also tried to use our supply chain. We procured 1,500 more oxygen concentrators, and we got them to the hospitals. So far, this mission we termed it as Mission Vayu, and so far Mission Vayu has airlifted more than 14,000 life-saving medical equipment. And we have gotten this to about 150 plus hospitals across the country. So what we are doing is we are very carefully working with the government, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Niti Aayog, trying to understand where there is urgent needs. I'll give you an example. We mobilized the US IVC Global Task Force in the United States and fully funded 100 ventilators ourselves and got the US companies to fund an additional 900 ventilators. But with the help of the government, we were able to identify, and Red Cross, which hospitals need them most. So we basically mobilized the end-to-end delivery, installation, maintenance, training of personnel, so that these ventilators can be put to use. So all in all, our focus has been in getting medical equipment, logistics of that, and movement of that. We've also set up oxygen plants in government hospitals. That's kind of where the urgent need is. All in all, about $16.5 million of equipment has made it. Clearly, this is not nearly enough for the crisis of this scale, and we continue to partner with NGOs and the government to find all opportunities to help.
Sure. Amit, you know, what's also interesting is that in this crisis and all of the lockdowns and containment areas, for more than a year now, a lot of people have been relying on companies like Amazon for home delivery of products. And you know, your delivery staff are also frontline workers. They supply to homes where there are COVID patients. They supply to health centers, right? They supply to normal people who may be in a containment zone. They can't get out of their homes that easily. Tell us a little bit about their role and the risks which they themselves have faced.
Yeah, as I said, you know, we have three key priorities at this point in time. Pretty much the whole company is focused on that right now. How do we keep our employees and associates safe? How do we help the crisis efforts that are underway? And how do we serve customers and the selling partners? These people depend upon their lives, upon us for their lives and livelihoods in this crisis mode. So we have to make sure that we are focused simultaneously on all of these areas. So on the employee and associates front, as you pointed out, you know, we have taken quite a few actions. You know, last year we had practiced putting in place all the safety precautions, social distancing norms, testing, you know, masks, and all the practices that are needed, 100 plus process changes, so that we can keep our frontline associates safe. Now, this time, you know, as we know, this wave has been even more drastic for all of us, and so we have reviewed our insurance benefits, our leave policies. We're offering counseling. There are a lot of you know, very heartbreaking to see employees lose their loved ones, lose their teammates and colleagues. So they need that kind of well-being stuff. And then emergency medical help. You know, we have a dedicated helpline to assist with hospital search, ambulance, plasma donors, oxygen. One of the most notable efforts that has come up in the company that's having its, I would say, the highest leverage impact is this volunteer group of Amazonians called the COVID Warriors. We have more than 1,000 of these now across 30 plus cities. Yeah. And we have formed these small decentralized groups, and we are supporting them centrally with a CS helpline. So Amazon customer service has been pivoted to act as a 24/7 helpline for any employee or their families or friends. We are offering a bank of medical equipment, whether it's oxygen, access to you know, isolation centers, medicines, and so on, so that you can rush in to help. And then we have put technology on top of it, like we do at everything at Amazon, that allows expedient resolution of emergency situations. So this has really done a huge, had a huge impact in not only supporting our employees, but saving lives. Now, at the same time, we also recognize that customers and selling partners depend upon us.
Sure.
So I think on that side,
it's just fascinating, and throughout this entire period, Amit, so many people across the country have been reliant on services provided by Amazon and other companies like yours. I'm running out of time, so I need to wrap this up. We can talk about the business aspect of all of this in the course of a pandemic year, perhaps later on. On the one hand, people need Amazon, but on the other hand, with salaries dwindling, there's also the entire issue of what people were willing to afford. Perhaps we can do that at another time. I'd like to thank you very much for being with us this evening. We're out of time on Left, Right and Center. From all of us here, goodbye.